Evening. My name is Marquardt, and for the last 5 years I've been working as the CFO finance manager for a company called Kloppenberg & Company. And Kloppenberg was started in 1968 by the current CEO's father. Generally speaking, they've been a stainless steel manufacturer of equipment for the food service industry. So, if you've been to Chipotle, Texas Roadhouse, Starbucks, you've probably seen somewhat, well, you probably haven't noticed, but our products are in there. Simply put, we do not make the ice makers that make the ice, but we make the storage and the transport of the ice that comes out of that ice machine. So our bins range from 500 pounds of ice to over 5,000. Some of them are the size of a tiny house, so they're pretty big. We're currently outfitted in the new Raiders Stadium in Las Vegas. We have done a lot of different chains across the country, and we are growing into the convenience store segment. So our dispenser machines are ones that will churn out either bags or predetermined quantities of ice for anybody who pulls up to buy that ice from a convenience store. That's the business, and it's been a great business, but our CEO at this point is 71 years old, and he does not have a succession plan, doesn't have any family members to pass it on to, and frankly, has not set the business up to be a viable business to be sold on its own. Now, call it lack of planning, call it whatever you want, that's the situation. We have been in discussions with him over the last 6 months about not only buying the business, but as recently buying the land underneath it. In 1968, tired of outgrowing the facility that his father kept outgrowing, he purchased between 11 and 15 acres of land in Inglewood. You guys may know the Costco on Sheridan, on Santa Fe down there. It's just west of that, just up the hill past the golf course. The Oxford Ave corridor is mostly industrial, landscaping, recycling, so on and so forth. So just to kind of paint a picture of what that is. This particular piece of property is about 11 acres. You can see it here. For the most part, it's kind of a knife-shaped property that borders the golf course. The building is about 110,000 square feet, roughly half the acreage that it sits on. As you can see here, it sits right in the middle of the Inglewood Opportunity Zone. The land, although it hasn't been properly appraised, the broker opinion of values place it right about $9.5 million. We've negotiated the deal with the seller. We're waiting on a signed letter of intent, we should have it this week or next, that puts the deal at $10.5 million for the business and the real estate. Of course, we're going to be doing this through a qualified opportunity fund to take advantage of the tax benefits, but also to utilize the ability to go out and raise capital to not only look at some development on the existing vacant part of the land, but also as it will, we believe it'll be the first domino to fall, because there's hundreds of acres directly adjacent to that property. So the highlights, I think I've run through it. We definitely see that not only through the appreciation of the property itself, but also the business that sits on it, that this fund will be able to produce a significant increase in value for our fund investors over the next 10 years, or in the 10-year span. So we have, and with a lot of funds, there is a kind of a parameter that's drawn around what they want to invest in. And that's great, there's nothing wrong with that. But this fund has a specific target and a specific exit strategy for what we want to do with the fund. The only other highlight is we met with the city of Sheridan. We explained what we were looking to do, and they've basically rubber stamped the idea. They'd love to see the property improved. They'd love to see workforce housing. They'd love to see some innovation businesses on the property. So there's a lot of different opportunities there with that land, and we see that we can work collaboratively with them to go where we need to go. that 2 minutes?
Yeah, it's about 10, but that's okay. No, I'm just kidding. Explain to everybody the zoning and how the city of Sheridan interprets the zoning on the property.
So the zoning for this plot is business light industrial, which for you in the room that know, everything that allows for pretty much anything outside of heavy industrial. So as long as we don't want to do, as long as we're not trying to melt down metal and that type of thing, pretty much everything is allowed on this property.
Any other questions for Lucas?
So what does it take to further develop the property as far as, is there any functional obsolescence of the building? What kind of capital do you need to put new equipment in to scale?
So the question is about what further capital is needed to develop the property as well as the business? Okay. Well, as you can see here from this picture, half the property is pretty much dirt. We've seen phase 1 and phase 2 environmental done on the property in the last 10 years. We don't believe there's significant environmental issues. To utilize this 5 acres for development of workforce housing, that type of thing, it's pretty much as raw as you can get at the current time. One of the soft talks that we've had involves a rooftop operation, whether it's solar or greenhouse. So we would need some environmental assessment to make sure that the building will sustain that weight. As far as the business itself, as it operates now, it's not a matter of machinery, it's not a matter of people. It's a matter of leadership and a matter of tightening up our production, which we've already started to do, and grow the revenues, which are right now about 80% of where they need to be.
So when you describe the purchase of the real estate and the business, that's at $10.5 million. And moving forward, when you develop an opportunity zone fund, how important is the business and how much are you relying on the real estate part of it?
As far as, sorry, the question is how much are we relying on the real estate to appreciate on its own?
If you looked at it, some kind of projection of cash flow, what is the contribution from the business itself continuing to work or improving, and also the building as a real estate transaction?
So the cash flows for this portion of the building, which is about 60% of the building, is anywhere between $25,000 and $40,000 a month. This part right now is currently cash flowing about $10,000 a month, and this part of the building here is currently for lease for about $15,000 a month. So $65,000 a month in positive cash flow or rent from the business and the premises is not unreasonable.
So Lucas, could you speak to the concept of setting up an incubator or accelerator in the back part of the building?
So that's the question is about setting up an incubator or accelerator or innovation center in the building. So as I mentioned before, or might have, this 32,000 square feet here is currently empty. And that's because we contracted operations from 100,000 square feet to about 70 earlier this year. It's a great space, 14-foot ceilings, zoned industrial, loading dock, everything you could need for an industrial space, heavy power. There aren't that many people out there that need 30,000 square feet of space, especially manufacturers. However, there is an opportunity to have 1 or 10 smaller manufacturing companies to come in, utilize the space, perhaps leverage some shared services, some shared resources, and thus lower the overhead, the manufacturing overhead that they might experience otherwise. That's certainly a possibility. I mean, we'd love to see smaller manufacturing businesses come in and leverage that space and then essentially grow out of there. To date, we've talked to 3 different businesses that are interested, and all of which have, $100 million scale potential, but they need a place to call home. So that's something we would look at as well.
Do you know what, have you worked through the concept of substantially improving the building and what that means as far as the opportunity zone is concerned? And how are you going to get there with the numbers that you just described?
So the question is about improving the building as it sits now?
Correct. You know you have to put 100% of whatever you allocate to the building in the building for it to be substantially improved.
The truth is if the building were to be sold to a third party, cleaned out and sold, it would require about $2 million worth of upgrade. I mean, the building's over 50 years old. Talking about new roof, talking about, I mean, the offices still have the wood paneling. It looks like a scene out of Mad Men sometimes. So in terms of interior, exterior, structurally, it's not, there isn't a real issue with it. One of the bonuses of having this particular hybrid setup is that, for the most part, certainly the larger part of the building doesn't require any upfit to continue to operate the business that's in there right now. Even in the back, if we were to do an innovation center or, you know, somebody who's not looking for a Class A building, it could be operated as is. So yeah, while we do want to, when we have to, put some renovation or upgrades into the building, it's not at a point where it's absolutely necessary to invest.
You have to pass the test.
Yeah.
Okay. How do you pass the test?
I'm sorry. So there are a number of opportunities to do that, whether it's raising the ceiling. We talked about a structure on the roof, and then we would look to, again, the development on the back side of the lot certainly will constitute a large amount of that improvement.
So work remains to be done on that. But yes, okay, any other questions for Lucas?
So what is your ask? Is it 10.5 or is it 12 to do the $2 million first part of the question? And how is the business structured now as a LLC, CES, and will you dilute based on debt equity? How do you want to structure basically?
The operating entity right now is currently structured as an LLC. It's owned by the same three shareholders or members that the property is owned by, that they would be selling the land, the building, and the business in one. The structure is that the fund would own the business and the real estate. Now, we would structure the lead investors so that they have a carry, being the first one in the pool, so to speak, and you know, we would also look to create a defined exit strategy for the business so it could be sold off before the property is as well. So, and again, that part is still in development, but there's a lot of different opportunities to handle it.
Okay, thanks, Lucas.
Thank you.